Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art Talk 141. Today, we're talking about the artist Maya Lin. Maya Lin was born in Athens, Ohio. Her parents emigrated from China to the United States, her father in 1948 and her mother in 1949, just before the communist takeover. Her father, Henry Huan Lin, was a ceramicist and dean of the Ohio University College of Fine Arts. And her mother, Julia Chang Lin, is a poet and a former professor of literature at Ohio University. So creativity and artistry are in her DNA. According to Lin, she didn't even realize she was ethnically Chinese until later in life, and that only in her 30s did she acquire an interest in her cultural background. Lin has said that she didn't have many friends growing up. She stayed home a lot, loved to study, loved school. While still in high school, she actually took courses at Ohio University, where she learned to cast bronze in the school's foundry. She graduated in 1977 from Athens High School in the Plains, Ohio, after which she attended Yale University, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in 1981. In a fateful moment in her senior year at Yale, Lin entered a nationwide competition to design a monument to be erected in honor of soldiers who had served and died in the Vietnam War. And at age 21, she was only 21, she would become an artist to watch when her design took first prize in the contest, and the monument she designed was slated to be built at the northwest corner of the National Mall in Washington, D.C. So the design she submitted was in sharp contrast to traditional war memorials. It was polished, a V-shaped granite wall with each side measuring 247 feet, simply inscribed with the names of the more than 58,000 soldiers killed or missing in action, listed in order of death or disappearance. The monument was graceful and abstract, built to be slightly below ground level, and it eschewed the usual heroic design often associated with such memorials. This, of course, made the work very controversial. According to Lin, her intention was to create an opening or a wound in the earth to symbolize the pain caused by the war and its many casualties. She recalled, quote, "I imagine taking a knife and cutting into the earth, opening it up, and with the passage of time, that initial violence and pain would heal." After what proved to be a draining experience for Lin, the monument was dedicated and opened to the public on November 11th, 1982, Veterans Day. It has since become a massive and very emotional draw for tourists, with more than 10,000 people per day viewing the work. Lin returned to academic life, beginning graduate studies in architecture at Harvard, but she then left Harvard soon after to work for an architect in Boston. And in 1986, she finished her master's in architecture back at Yale. 2 years later, she signed on with the Southern Poverty Law Center to design a monument for the civil rights movement. Again, she turned to the power of simplicity in her design. The monument consisted of just two elements: a curved black granite wall inscribed with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech, and a 21-foot disc inscribed with the dates of major civil rights era events and the names of 20 martyrs to the cause. Punctuated with a flowing water element, the memorial was dedicated in Montgomery, Alabama in November of 1989. This sculpture has a flowing water element as well. This is a women's table finished in 1993. She was invited to create a piece of art that would mark the 20th anniversary of the university's allowing women to enroll at Yale College. It's kind of mind-boggling that it was only 20 years at that time. Inscribed upon the ellipses is a spiral of numbers that traces the presence of women at the university, counting the number enrolled at Yale each year from when they were not accepted, the 1900s, to the present. The spiral emerges from the water source and grows wider as the number of women enrolled at Yale increases. The choice of the spiral was made to indicate a beginning, but to leave the future open, with its last inscription marking the number of women enrolled for the year in which the piece was dedicated, so 1993. And the color of the stone that Lin chose is Lake Placid blue, the university's color. In Groundswell, the intention was to work with a building that had numerous, quote, throwaway spaces in its design. These highly visible yet neglected areas of this building became the site for Lin's artwork. She filled them with broken safety glass, and gardens evoking landscape and seascape were created, affording pockets of calm within this busy deconstructivist building. She wanted to incorporate her combined East-West cultural background, combining kind of a traditional Zen garden with her interest in the southeastern Ohio Native American mounds. Also important in this project is the use of recycled glass, which helps to emphasize the use of reused or throwaway materials. Two types of recycled glass were used, and mixing the two colors to get a shade that was reminiscent of water. This artwork is at the Wexner Center for the Arts in Columbus, Ohio. Again, using a wave or kind of a mound design, the wave field is an expression of a simple water wave, taking its inspiration from the study of fluid dynamics, aerodynamics, and turbulence. In approaching the design of a sculpture for the University of Michigan, Lin wanted to relate her interests in landscape to aerospace engineering. So water and fluidity create this endless motion within which visitors can enter and interact this field. The sculpture is viewable from both the classrooms above it and from the surrounding garden. Growing up in Ohio in the 1960s, Maya watched her father participate in the studio glass movement, then gathering steam in nearby Toledo. The green marbles used in this installation are the same industrial fiberglass product that her dad, Henry Juan Lin, and other glass-blowing pioneers experimented with then. And her imaginative portrayal of the Chesapeake Bay, which is actually based on a drawing that she created using satellite imagery from NASA, is one of 9 art installations that make up Wonder, the inaugural exhibition at the Smithsonian's then newly renovated Renwick Gallery of the Smithsonian American Art Museum. In the Winter Garden of the American Express building in downtown Minneapolis, the hardwood floor dips and rises like a gently rolling landscape. Maya Lin designed the space and says that one of her longtime fixations was the idea of an indoor hill. But because it's a permanent artwork and must therefore be wheelchair accessible, the contours weren't as severe as Lin would have liked. So when she returned to her studio, she decided to recreate another indoor hill, this time really pushing the boundaries of severity. And the result is 2x4 landscape, an imposing hill made of thousands of upright 2x4s that was assembled in a warehouse in South Lake Union in Washington. And in mid-April of 2004, it moved to the Henry Art Gallery at the University of Washington. Blue Lake Pass goes along with 2x4 landscape and was part of a larger exhibit that she did at the Henry Art Gallery. Again, it's constructed topography that viewers can interact with. It's based on the terrain of a Rocky Mountain back range and is made from cut particle board. And the choice of terrain is something familiar and personal. Lin's family, they have a summer home in southwestern Colorado. So to create the sculpture, she applied a 3x3 foot grid to that topology and then pulled the terrain apart so that one can kind of walk through the landscape, as you can see this picture of her in between the two pieces. Einstein's table at Princeton University is an 11-foot diameter granite water table with an elliptical shape to recall the Earth's solar orbit and subtle white stone reminiscent of the Milky Way in the night sky, and a design that pays homage to one-time Princeton resident Albert Einstein and his theory on black holes. In a statement, Lin says that this piece, quote, taps into my dual interests in immersive and environmental earthworks, as well as my focus on a more object-oriented, cartographic, and science-based approach. The Princeton project is all about finding a sustainable landscape approach that blends in with the existing site. Finally, in Ghost Forest, Lin brought a towering stand of 49 Atlantic white cedar trees, all victims of saltwater inundation due to climate change, to downtown Manhattan's Madison Square Park. A 6-month installation, this majestic grove of cut trees will slowly turn grayer and more ghostly as the park's grand living trees go through all the seasons, starting in winter and returning to winter by the end of the installation. And Lin brings her vision as an artist and her agency as an environmental activist to this project. Ghost Forest is really a haunting symbol of the devastation of climate change. In addition to having a lifelong successful career, Maya Lin has also been recognized with numerous awards, including the National Medal of the Arts, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and she was elected to the Women's Hall of Fame in Seneca Falls. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you all next week.